Decoupled Drupal. And just because I was setting up, could those people who've used Drupal or are using Drupal raise their hands again? How many of, now keep your hands up if you are using Drupal 8. Okay, alrighty. For the lone person using Drupal 7, unfortunately you're out of luck for this talk, but we can talk later about options that you got. Alrighty, so this talk is also about how Gatsby loves Drupal. And how we've worked together with two amazing communities to foster this amazing relationship that allows for live preview through Decoupled Drupal and Gatsby. As I mentioned, my name is Preston So. Some of you may know me from the Drupal community. I'm the author of the book Decoupled Drupal in Practice, which was just published last year. And if you want to kind of tweet at me, I'll be following the hashtag Gatsby Drupal Preview. If you have any questions about what you see today, I'm happy to answer those later on as well. So I think Kyle did a really great job answering what is Gatsby, the question that a lot of us have today. But I do want to dig into a little bit of how it looks for developers and why it's so important for developers from the point of view of those who are using Gatsby. I also want to talk about why Gatsby is great for Drupal, talk about a couple of case studies about Gatsby Drupal sites, and then go through a really quick demonstration of how to set up live preview. A lot of these are videos. I realize the Wi-Fi is wonky here, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to do this full live demo. And then finally, I want to end with what's next for Gatsby and Drupal. How are these two communities coming even closer together in ways that we never imagined? So, by the way, credit to Dustin Shao. I stole these slides from him because he wrote this amazing introduction about what Gatsby is. If we look today at the modern developer experience on the web, some of the biggest challenges that we have in modern web development have to do with just getting started. A lot of times, we know that React developers had a really complex history before we got into things like Create React App and some of these boilerplates that now exist. And secondly, the way that we manage data is evolving in a way that is completely different from how we have managed data before. We're now dealing with many different back-end services, many different systems, even markdown files within our Gatsby sites. And getting this right is actually really hard. So for developers and for that developer experience, Gatsby is a shortcut to allow you to build those apps and sites that you want to construct. And most workflows today in web development involve a lot of boilerplate to get started. But the good thing is that Gatsby sets all of this up for you. So for those of you who are a little bit less familiar with the elements that make up Gatsby, on the left-hand side of this figure, you can see a variety of different CMSs and back-end systems, including Contentful, WordPress, Shopify, Drupal 8. And these all feed into Gatsby through source plugins, which retrieve data and then keep that data in storage. Through the means of a GraphQL API, you can actually access that data from your React components within Gatsby. That then gets published out to a CDN, and you have an amazing Gatsby site that is really well performing. CDN, by the way, stands for Content Delivery Network. So Gatsby removes the boilerplate to get started, all of this work to get started, and for deploying apps to production. And we obsess over that front-end performance tuning, so you don't have to worry about it. There's a lot of talks that people give about how to improve performance in React, how to improve performance in JavaScript, and that's really not as much of a concern with Gatsby. So Gatsby's goal is to make web development ever more powerful and simple. And with that, let's move into a little bit about Drupal. Now, I know many of you work with Contentful or some of these other headless CMSs, so please bear with me. This is a little bit more for the Drupal audience. Decoupled Drupal, by the way, is the paradigm that people are using today, that new architecture that removes the presentation layer from Drupal, makes it a little bit hidden, actually, and uses instead a different presentation layer, such as Gatsby. One of the biggest problems today is that monolithic CMS applications are now being replaced by much more specialized content systems. And this is a really quick example that I want to show from the Drupal perspective. Back in the day, in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, there was a bevy of different modules or plugins available in the Drupal ecosystem, including e-commerce solutions, login, authentication, content, form handling. And nowadays, we're finding that a lot of folks want to use these new kind of upstart services that are developing more and more in the market. Things like Auth0, for instance, or search driven through Algolia, or cart functionality actually driven by snipcart, or typeform for form handling. And what a lot of people are discovering in the Drupal community as well is that it's a lot of work to maintain all of these different plugins. So this is a similar slide to the one that Kyle just showed, but a lot of the things that are happening relate to this integration layer between all of these disparate back-end services and the front-end layer that actually serves all of this data and all of this functionality in a very, very easy to maintain way. So that's kind of the story of the content mesh. And content mesh is a term that was coined by our co-founder, Sam Bhagwat. And it really has to do with this notion of that integration layer. Gatsby is that glue that brings together all of those disparate back-end systems and CMSs and marries it to a performant front-end layer that is incredibly fast and incredibly fun to use, as many of us know. So with that, let's talk briefly about why Drupal for Gatsby. I know a lot of the contentful or prismic adherents in the room are probably kind of skeptical. Well, you know, the project lead of Drupal himself, Dries Buytaert, said that moving to a JavaScript-driven front end can actually solve a lot of the resourcing challenges you find today in Drupal. One reason is that JSON API, which is a very common API specification, is now part of Drupal core. It's actually one of those specifications that's been adopted by Ember.js as well, if you have used Ember in the past. And that means that after only a few clicks, this isn't your old Drupal that you were used to before. You've got an amazing headless CMS with just a few clicks, enable a couple of modules in your Drupal 8 UI, and boom, you have an API that is now fully functional that you can now consume through Gatsby. Also, Gatsby's ecosystem for Drupal is already growing incredibly fast. We now have Gatsby Source Drupal, which is the source plugin for Drupal, but also with the introduction of Gatsby themes, we have Gatsby Theme Drupal, which is a very powerful tool to get started quickly with building your Gatsby Drupal site. By the way, I'm never sure, now that we're in this new world, whether to call it Gatsby Drupal site, Drupal Gatsby site, Drupal supported, Drupal backed Gatsby site. Like, it's really, you know, this is how we're going to have to coin some new terminology here. The fourth reason why Drupal and Gatsby are great together is that both of us are really active and passionate communities. I love being part of both of these communities. They're very active. People are very helpful, and I think you see that borne out in a lot of the conversations you have with us on GitHub. So very quickly, before I jump into actually how to build this and how to get this all set up, let me talk about a few Gatsby Drupal sites that are already online and in existence. These are sites that are currently in production and at scale. So the first is the City Springs website, a new development in Sandy Springs, Georgia. That's been built by our friends over at MediaCurrent, Drupal consultancy and Gatsby consultancy out in Atlanta. And this site is actually a really, really interesting example of a Gatsby site that works very well for the purposes it serves. And also, Third and Grove, who we've partnered to work on the Gatsby Drupal integration, just rebuilt their website in Gatsby. Please go ahead and check it out. And both of these sites, by the way, are using Gatsby backed by Drupal 8. Alrighty, so I'm hoping the Wi-Fi holds up here. I've got a couple of videos to show just how quickly you can get set up and how easy it is to get started. But first, I want to make sure to recognize all of the folks who have been working on the Gatsby Drupal integration and the Gatsby Drupal working group. From the Drupal side, the Third and Grove side, Grant Glidewell, Shane Thomas, John Entwistle, Matt Davis, and from the Gatsby side, of course, Dustin Shao and our very own Kyle as well. Alrighty. So the first thing you want to do is to go ahead and sign up for a 14-day trial at gatsbyjs.com/preview. That page looks like this. It's very easy to get started. You log in with your GitHub credentials, and it's very easy. Next thing you want to do is the really easiest way to set up a free Drupal site that's on a free tier and doesn't require a whole lot of maintenance is actually on Pantheon. So if you go to pantheon.io and register for an account there, you can create a new Drupal site and install Drupal completely through their platform. So let's see if this holds up. If it doesn't hold up, I've got an offline version of this as well. So what I'm going to do is scrub through this video a little bit. And I wish I could remove this thing here. These slides with this covered bar here. Can I drag this? No, I can't. Okay, well, bear with me here. Let's actually use this again, okay. All right. So what we're doing here is creating a Pantheon site, and I gave this talk already before in the past, but it's very quick, it's a very easy process, and I'm just gonna scrub through here to the process where you actually set up the Drupal. There we go. So the next thing that you wanna do is to provision your Drupal site on Pantheon, and that's what's happening right now. You know what, let me use the offline version of this video because it's gonna work better with the Wi-Fi. And I can scrub through more easily. So here we're deploying Drupal 8, and once it's deployed, as you can see, there's a reason why I didn't go through this live. The Drupal installation process can be very slow. What we're doing here is configuring the Drupal installation. What I've done here is used the demo installation profile Umami, which is already set up and actually integrates very nicely with the Gatsby ecosystem around Drupal as well. Now we're installing Drupal, getting everything going, and finally, once everything is set up, you can see that we have our site that's fully built out with Drupal available and all of the things that we expect to see in Drupal. For those of you who haven't touched Drupal in a while, the Umami installation profile is actually a really nice demo that showcases example content, showcases things like multilingual support, and a lot of things that are still key to all of our CMS workflows. Now what we're doing here is to enable JSON API, which is the module that is going to expose all of our content through Drupal and allow it to be consumed by Gatsby. Alrighty. The next thing that you're going to want to do also is to configure CORS. CORS, by the way, stands for Cross-Origin Resource Sharing. And that's in order to allow for other domains to be able to access the Drupal site. So the easiest way to do this is within your sites directory underneath your Drupal site. You want to go to copy that default.services.yaml file to services.yaml. Set your desired CORS configuration. What I'll show in the video that I have for this is something you should not use in production, but does make it really easy to get started. So what I'm doing here is just bringing down my Drupal site onto my local. And now, what I'm going to do is actually copy over services to services.yaml, and now you can see the CORS config YAML here. We want to enable all headers, enable all methods. Obviously, you don't want to do this in production, but this will get you started very quickly with getting this set up in Drupal 8. Then we go ahead and push the new configuration file. And as many of you may know with Drupal, you sometimes have to rebuild the cache registry every time you save configuration, and that's something that you may need to do after this process as well. Alrighty. Then you want to import your Gatsby site that is hosted on GitHub. Currently, we don't support other repository or version control providers at the moment, but that is something that we are thinking about, so please let us know if you're on Bitbucket or GitLab and you need that support. So basically, the way to get your site is to just use our provisioning flow, which looks something like this. Now, what you can do is create a site that's automatically just generated out of the box for you, or you can import your own site. So for example, what I've done here is to go ahead and provide certain things like the environment variable that has the Drupal base URL, and I'm going ahead and creating this site as a test site here. Once that's done, it automatically triggers a new preview and also will go ahead and give me everything I need. And then, of course, when it's done, okay, well, I didn't record to the end there, but once it's done, you now have a working preview. And then the next thing you want to do is to install the Drupal Gatsby module. Now, this can be done in a variety of different ways. You can take the tarball off of Drupal.org, put it into your source, kind of directly, or you can install it through something like Composer or Drush. And then you want to go to the live preview settings and put in your Gatsby Preview URL, and of course, rebuild the cache registry as needed. And then you can edit your Drupal content. So let me go ahead and show a live demo of this right now. I'm hoping the Wi-Fi holds up here. So please bear with me. I do want to show what this looks like. Let's see here. There we go. Okay. Bring this up here. So on the right side here is my Drupal site with all of my content currently there in place. What I've got here is I've got my Gatsby dashboard here. Now, one of the things I want to start with is to just show you, if you go to the settings for your Gatsby Live Preview module, you can set your preview URL, and that's really all you need to get this working. So here, for example, is my list of modules. Now, because I've limited the viewport, it's actually hiding one of the columns. Now, this is still in alpha, so there are bugs, there are issues. You're going to see a couple of rough edges here. If I click on Help and I go to Gatsby Live Preview Settings, you can see that what I've done is I've taken my preview instance URL here and put it into the configuration for my Drupal site. That's pretty much the last step that you need to do. Now, what I'm going to do is show you my personal site. One of the things I have on my personal site is I have a list of talks I've given in the past, which is very out of date, as you can see. And this list of talks is actually pulled from Drupal content. So a very, very quick and easy demo that I can do is to go to show you my content list here. And I've got all of my content here. I'm going to just go ahead and edit this first one. And I'm just going to type in something like, hello from Drupal. Now I hit save. Now, as you can see, the preview just updated more quickly than the Drupal site itself updated. I mean, that's pretty incredible. And I want to give major props, by the way, to every single member of the Gatsby team, both on the Inc. team and not, who worked on this. This is an amazing, amazing project. So, of course, there's a typo in here. I don't like all these ones. I'm not that excited about this. So let me take away these ones and just show you how quickly, once again, that updates. Boom. So just to finish up here, I just gave a live demo. I'm really glad the Wi-Fi held up, just in case I had a little video here, so you wouldn't be disappointed. So what's next for Gatsby and Drupal? What's coming down the chute? What are people looking forward to next? Well, as you see with that experience, it's a really good experience already, but there's a lot of improvements that we can make, not only on the Drupal side of things, but also on the Gatsby side of things. The first thing that the working group is currently in the progress of working on is a more integrated editing experience. Also, there's a new distribution of Drupal called Rain that was released by our friends at MediaCurrent that's going to have better integrations with this whole live preview module. Also, if you're familiar with the Drupal ecosystem, you know about content moderation, a very important piece of content editors' workflows today, draft states, unpublished states, so on and so forth. And then finally, just to make this even more live, we're working on keystroke by keystroke preview. So just to give you a quick glance at how this will actually be more fully integrated into the editing experience, you can see here that there's a use of the paragraphs module, which is a way to lay out content in Drupal. And you can see that there's a fully integrated open Gatsby Preview button there that's just like the Contentful experience for those of you who use the Contentful sidebar extension. And this is a really powerful approach because it means you can directly go to the preview from Drupal without having to ever leave your environment that you're working in. Also, if you haven't tried Rain yet, if you're a Drupal user, Rain is a really great distribution that is ready-made for Gatsby as well, and it's ready-made to be decoupled. And then finally, we are going to also be working on keystroke by keystroke preview. I want to give thanks to Shane Thomas, who let me borrow these slides. And all of this will be coming down the chute here very soon. And so a couple of takeaways before I run out of time here. Gatsby's not just for static sites. And as Kyle mentioned just now, Gatsby isn't a static site generator. It's much more than that. It's for CMS-driven sites. It's that integration layer. It's that piece that really brings everything together and marries the best of both worlds, both the content editor workflows that we know our clients love, but also the developer workflows that we love as well. And that's what makes Gatsby so inspiring. The Gatsby source Drupal plugin allows you to pull content from any Drupal 8 site. Once again, sorry about Drupal 7. There's options that we can talk about later. And then GraphQL in Gatsby, obviously very powerful, allows you to query your Drupal data as well. And finally, you can display your pages very easily with React components and live preview all your content coming down from Drupal. So I highly encourage all of you to try out our live preview. If you're using Contentful, if you're using Drupal, if you're using WordPress, whatever it is that you're working on, please try out our CMS preview product. We'd love to have your feedback. We'd love to have your bugs and fix those for you. And with that, thank you very much. Once again, Gatsby Drupal preview, hashtag if you'd like to ask questions, and let's foster some more love between our two communities. Thank you very much.